Should be live now. One second. Yes, we're live now. Please, over to you.
Good evening, precious family. Welcome to another wonderful Saturday with the girls. Oh, actually, with the ladies. Today we've got for people that are planning to have their own business or planning to start something. We've got a very interesting guest who would actually share some nuggets that can help us when we're building our own businesses and stuff like that. But as the normal norm, you know that before we bring our guest on, I've got my lovely lady, Tolu, who's going to do the introduction of the guest. Is going to talk to us a bit more about the guest. Tolu, over to you.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us again today. It's another lovely day on Inspirational Moments, and thanks, Liz, for the intro. So we have a wonderful person on here today who I am so privileged to, be getting into her mind, so to speak, and chatting chatting with her because she's done so much amazing and inspiring thing out there. So we're having Toks Arouture with us today. I hope I pronounced that well. And so, who's Toks? I'm just going to read a little bit of our Toks bio, and yeah, we'll kick off after that. So bear with me. I'll just read that to you guys. Toks Arouture is a mindset strategist. She's a storyteller, a nursery interior designer, and founder of the Baby Cot Shop in London, Chelsea. Toks believes that the most valuable tool for exponential growth are the gifts each person carries, but limiting beliefs often envelope them, which makes accessing the exceptional abilities difficult. Amazing. Through our podcast, Living Inside Out, she helps women unwrap their gifts so they can play bigger. She's a prolific writer and sought after speaker, and she's married with 4 sons. So I've listened to Toke's podcast and I really enjoy them. A lot of times I don't comment, but I'm just like, oh wow, okay, wow, amazing, mind blowing stuff there. So thanks, Tokes, for coming, on board with us today. And I'm going to be passing the baton on to Liz
Thank
to
you.
start off with some questions as we get into the mind.
Thank you, Tolu, for that wonderful introduction. Welcome aboard, Tokes.
Thanks
Uh,
for having me, Liz.
one of the things when Tolu was talking about you, she said you love writing. You tell a story. So I love, seriously, Tolu know this. I love reading a lot. I read. Just give me a good book to read. I'll forget the word. So when I see someone that can actually tell a story in a way and manner that I love, I just want to flow with them. So tell us a bit about the Baby Cot Shop. How do you come about setting this up? Was it because Tony said your mom of 4 boys? Was it because you had your sons and you couldn't find, find where you can get everything you need for the nursery and stuff like that?
That would have been the most ideal story. You always have stories where everyone has what looks like the perfect reason for starting a business. And I recall reading the stories of women in the same space that I'm in, saying that, oh, when I had my baby, there was nothing amazing on the market. And so I did the baby's nursery and decided I was going to start a business. It just seems like such the perfect story. And for a while, I actually suffered with a bit of this imposter syndrome because that's not my story at all. I My background is in, or should I say that I was not supposed to be, or well, I am supposed to be where I am now, but that was never my intention. My desire growing up was to be a doctor. My father's a surgeon, and I grew up just wanting to be like him. As a child, I went through his medical books, and especially the colored ones, and was obsessed with pictures of the human body and diseases and the craziest things. And when it came to studying, I didn't study for A level, so I couldn't get into medical school. I ended up studying pharmacology with a plan to later go to medical school. But in my second year, I got married to my best friend. And
Oh, bless.
going on, my whole life became less about human physiology and more about decorating our little flat in London. I began to
Wow.
spend more and more time at the home base and B&Q, just buying wallpaper and paint and all of that stuff. And then I went got a job as a medical rep. So worked as a medical rep for a number of years while I was having my children. After my third son was born, I tried to get my old job back, tried to go back to work after maternity leave with the right suitable hours for me, but they were being difficult. And so I happened at that time to be reading a book, and I think it was by Elizabeth Elliot, which is a Christian author. And can't remember the title of the book, but someone had written in saying, "How do I know what my gift is?"
Hmm.
And he
Mm.
said, "Your gift is that thing that you do so effortlessly, everyone thinks it's such a big deal except you."
Wow.
I
Mm.
literally read that sentence when the email came back from my employers, my former employers, to say that they weren't going to give me the hours I wanted. Same time, and I kind of moaned about it to my husband, and he says, "Why don't you just do what you love?" And I'm like, "But I don't even know what I love." And then recalled I had just read the thing you do so effortlessly. And for me, that was interior design, because not only had I done our home beautifully, a lot of my friends would come to me picking my brains or asking me to come to their home to do theirs as well. So I thought, interior design, that's it, that's my gift. And so I went back to school and did a couple of design courses.
Oh.
And then shortly afterwards, I set up an interior design firm. But then I had only been running the business for less than a year. So it barely even took off. It was still very much in its fledgling state when again the husband comes back from work one day and says, why don't we move to the US? And I thought, yeah, let's go. So we sold our home, took our boys, and off we went to the state of Georgia. And in the process of our move, purchased a baby furniture store that was very similar to what I do now. And then I merged my interior design background with selling baby furniture and children's furniture, and became a nursery and child nursery and children's interior designer. And so that was my entry point into the industry. And it was the first time I had seen anything like that. It wasn't just, it wasn't mother care or mamas and papas. It was,
Mm.
really beautifully designed, um, just thoughtfully crafted pieces of furniture. And that was my introduction. That's how I got into it.
Wow. So something practical, you know, because there's a lot. Well, mamas and papas, mother care. They don't. Yeah, they provide some services, but it won't be like what you provide, especially having that interior deco part of it that you can. Because most parents we're standing there. I know for a fact I'm standing there thinking what color goes with what, and how do I do this or how do I do. But having that actually would go a long way for parents as well too. You know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. 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 So we've seen a lot of you featuring in the Metro newspaper in London and many other newspapers as well on your success story. So I know for a fact if I'm reading that, my head will start swelling and I feel like, yeah, I've accomplished. Well, how how have you kept yourself level-headed and grounded even after seeing all of that accolades in the newspaper?
The thing is that, I mean, thank you. That's really sweet of you to say that. I see us all, everyone has got their own unique success story. There's a scripture in Joel that says, each man matched in his own column. And that's been my buzz scripture for the last couple of weeks. I just keep thinking about that. And I think about that because I'm currently going through a season where I'm practicing celebrating my individuality. because we live in a world that celebrates sameness, and we live in a world that encourages you to think exactly like everybody else and to do everything the way that other people do it. And even if no one tells you that, it's already quite challenging to do things that are that's different from what other people are doing. We're constantly looking back. Is this how it's done? I remember in my early days of starting my business, I used to look at this particular company. They're no longer in business now, but I used to look at them as my big sister, everything they did, I'm like, oh my goodness, while they did that, I have to do it too. And so my point is that recognizing that my success is not in relation to anybody else's, but it's understanding that I have a very unique path to walk on, and there's no one else on that path. And this is the same for every human being on earth. We're all matching in our own unique columns. It doesn't matter that the world has tried to make us seem like we should all be the same.
Be the same.
And so when people say success, I'm like, what is your measure of success? Like successful compared to what? You know what I mean? And for me, success really is coming to a place where I'm doing exactly what I was created to do. Now, it doesn't matter how successful I may appear, because appearance is one thing, and it doesn't matter how physically successful I seem to be. If I've got money in the bank, if I'm not fulfilling the purpose that I was created for, then I'm not being successful. It's just like when you have, I don't know if I have a plant pot up there, and I've got a little tree growing in it. I could, and before that, because I saw the plant pot and I loved it and I knew that I wanted it probably close to a year ago. So I've had it for a while. And in that space of time, I've tossed in coins, nails. We do furniture, so we have a lot of nails and fittings and things. And that's all that's been in there. But now that the plant is in there, it looks complete. Like, this is what it's supposed to do. It's not supposed to collect nails and screws and what have you. So that's, we're all individually gifted. And if we focus on what we are supposed to do and do it well to the best of our ability, then I think that that's success.
Amen to that. And you know what, Toks, that's just amazing what you've just said right there, because of the way the world is. There's this sense of wanting to compete with everybody else when the main competition is you. You're against yourself, isn't it? You're your own competition. What can you do to keep pushing the boundary for your life?
Exactly. I think when people start to, trip over what appears to be their own success, it's empty. I try to look at things through the prism of spirit, soul, and body. If you've been listening to some of the podcasts, and I refer back to it frequently, and although we're made of spirit, soul, and body, with our spirit being the first part of us and the part of us that's connected to God and the most superior part of us, we function mostly with our physical senses, and we draw conclusions based on our senses. We measure success based on our physical senses, and then we're leaving the soul, we're leaving the spirit out of the picture. And so when people say that person is really successful, a lot of times they're talking about physically, and they're only looking at the outside, and they're not, the current podcast episode is a story on Tyler Perry. And although externally he appeared to be successful, so now he is successful, and I believe he's fulfilled spirit, soul, and body. But even when his success story started, he didn't immediately, he may have had money on the outside and people would have seen him as this filmmaker, but his own success and his motivation for what he was doing was coming out of anger towards his father because of his story as a child going through abuse. And his motivation was anger. So if someone is dealing with anger and hasn't forgiven someone else, but then externally they've got all the money in the world, would you then say that the person is successful? They know they're suffering on the inside.
Well, that's a lot. I think the world try to put people in boxes. So you have to like tick a particular box for you to be successful. But like you said, it's living our purpose, living in our purpose, doing what we've been called to do. That's what success is. It's not just fulfilling other people's what was it called, or ticking other people's boxes for our life.
Right.
So this is a lot, and I am going to go and listen to your podcast because you talked about the mind, body, and soul and spirit. So I am going to go listen to that. I like listening to things like that. That kind of like
Yes.
uplift
Yes.
and let me think outside the box as well. So
Mhm.
based on what you've said, I know you said you've got your keywords and things that keep you going, that keep you level-headed. So, and then I like the fact you said you left the UK to move
Mhm.
to America. You sold everything and just moved.
Mhm.
So, and then you started the baby furniture business over there and stuff like that. But in between you doing all of this, have you ever failed in any business, and how did you get yourself back up?
That's a middle name I had for a while. We had the business in the US and it was doing really well and life was perfect. The kids were happy. It was our dream. The weather was nice. The people were kind. And then we began to hear that there were rumors of a coming financial uh
Down,
what do you call it, downturn.
downturn, yeah.
And
Mm,
I actually knew someone whose husband worked with Wall Street, and she told me and said, I'll be very careful if I were you because
mm,
things are about to change next year.
Yeah.
Retailers are going to find it hard. And what she was saying to me was, my lease was due for renewal, and she said, I'll think twice before renewing the lease.
Mm.
Then so in the US, if you have a business that's been trading for 20 or 30 years, that's like a century for them. Over here, it's normal to find established in 1835. Over
Yeah.
yes. That's true.
there, they proudly say 1996, and that's like, wow, they've been there forever. So there was this furniture shop that had been trading for, I think, 30 years or so at the time, at the same location, which was the same strip mall where we were located,
Mm.
and they closed down. And
Mm,
as, and they closed down, they said, because they heard, I don't know if they knew about the financial downturn, but they heard that our landlord was converting the place to it. There were just all kinds of crazy
Oh.
rumors going around. And
going.
there was
Mm,
actually a domino effect. The minute they shut, because they were an anchor store, they were one of the main companies in the city. And the minute they closed down, the person next to them closed, and the one after that, and it was literally
whoa.
domino
Wow.
effect until it hit us. So, and I lost everything, literally everything. We lost everything. We came back to England,
Wow.
and our plan was that we're going to come here, we're going to weather the storm. When things pick up again, we're going to go back. Now, I came back pregnant with my fourth son as well. And I remember that at the time, I was trying desperately to move the business online. And
Mm,
I had gone through, I think, two or three web designers, lost a ton of money with them, and
Mm.
they still didn't deliver what we wanted. So I hand over the notice to the landlord and say, I'm not going to renew the lease, so I'm giving you a 1 month notice. We tell our customers that we are moving online.
you lie.
We had a
Mm.
website, but it wasn't e-commerce. We're moving online. We're going to be trading online. And I'm saying all of this, and we don't even have a website. I'm saying
Mm,
all of this, and we don't even have the money for a website. I remember came back to England. I was pregnant, and I'm trying really hard to make sure that we have a website by the 30th day, so there would be no interruption in the business. And I called a friend of mine. I said, "Listen, I'm desperately in need of a website. I'm not fussy." And I remember thinking, you shouldn't have been fussy before. I'm not fussy. Anything would do. It just needs to be
Mm.
e-commerce. And he said to me, I don't do websites anymore, but a good friend of mine will help you. Here's his number. Call him, tell him I sent you. So I called this guy and I say, my friend Esau said, you'd help me. And the guy's like, oh, absolutely. Any friend of Esau's is my sister. That's my
yeah.
friend. I'm like, okay. So he tells me, oh, I'm like, just tell me how much it's going to cost. He goes, so how much do you have? I couldn't.
Oh,
Wow.
I said, you tell me how much you're going to charge. And we went back and forth for a minute. And then he said to me, because you're ASOS friend, I'm going to charge you £1,000. And I went, okay. If he had said to me £100, I'm not lying, I wouldn't have been able to afford £100 for the website in that moment. So, and I had to buy nappies, right? So
Mm.
I said, oh, don't worry, I'll let you know if I decide to go ahead. And I thought there's only one thing left to do. And I Googled how to build a website and
Wow.
found, and this was, bear in mind, this was in 2008, which website building was not what it is today. It was
Yeah.
really was rocket science, or brain surgery. Right now, it's you can put a website together in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Learned about all the different components of a website, learned about the components. So back then, you had to literally buy everything from different companies. You'd buy
Mm.
the front page, the appearance, the theme. You'd buy the cart, that it sits in. You'd buy your payment gateway.
Yeah.
PayPal was not.
Yeah.
I don't remember PayPal being integrated into websites at the time. It did exist, but it was just for sending money. So,
Mm.
so you had to then, get them. It was just so many parts to it. So I eventually was able to get the website up and running and had it up by day 25 or 26
By yourself.
by myself. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
And what that did for me, it still helps me today, is when you go through a situation that is, challenging or very difficult, no matter how small the progress is, if you're able to get something done, something completed, it not only lifts your spirit in that moment, but it helps you for the rest of your life. So I
Absolutely.
call
Mm.
things milestones, and I have I actually call them my bank of evidence, and I collect these bits of evidence wherever I go. So when I'm feeling like, oh my goodness, I can't do this, I'm like, Toks, you built a website from scratch. I'm like, oh, I can't do this. You built a website. You collect all of these experiences and you save them. You don't just say, you don't explain them away and say, well,
Mm.
I think
I
this is,
had no choice.
I had no choice, or things are even worse this time and therefore I can't do it. I believe that pain and challenge and difficulty is not measured by the thing or the experience itself, but I believe that it's measured by how much of you is left when you've been dealt with.
Mm.
So some
Mm.
people would have been through, I mean, there are businessmen and women that have lost everything and they just dusted themselves and got up. There are
Mm.
businessmen and women that have lost everything and they remained in depression till this day.
Mm.
So it's
Mm.
the same situation, but people process and deal with things differently.
Right.
Differently.
It's,
Mm.
yeah, so that was, so that was my story. And so I built the website and then you guys, I'm a storyteller, so you're gonna have to reel me back in if I'm not.
We love
No, we're learning.
that.
Sorry, we're learning from this. So we want to hear it. We want to hear it. We're learning.
Right, said so. So I built the website and then began to look at. I then started to attend networking meetings, which I really hated. Prior to that, I had the obstacle of of the products. Initially, I wanted to keep my US accounts, and sell what we had in the. Sorry, I'm skipping. So we built the website. This is for the US store. That was fine. I'm thinking, I'm here, I'm pregnant. By this time, my baby was born. I'm breastfeeding. I'm
Mm.
not just going to sit down and breastfeed and stare. I need to do something. I need to build a business. And we had no idea how long we were going to be here for either, or how long the recession would last for. So what I then did was begin to research the UK market and look to see if, what the baby furniture market was like, because that's all I knew. And to my surprise, there was nothing remotely close to what we did in the US.
Mm.
I thought, hey, I've learned how to build a website. I can build one for the UK. So I just banged one up really quickly and began to now look for products to sell. And that was a bit of a challenge because uh, when I launched my e-commerce store in the US, and I sent out an email to all of our suppliers to let them know the change of we had to get a mailbox address for deliveries. Oh, this is our new address. This is this and everything. I got a flurry of emails back from quite a few of them saying, "I'm really sorry, Toks. We love you, but we don't want our products to be sold anywhere but in a physical shop. So if you don't have,"
Wow.
Mm.
and I had to close those accounts, and it was heartbreaking because at the time I didn't know how to separate my emotions from experiences, and I didn't know how to separate my emotions from business, and so everything that happened in the business affected me emotionally. So they said that. I'm like, okay. So we kind of left that to the side, and I started building the UK arm of the business. Um, Same situation here. Well, sorry, if you don't have a physical location, we don't want, because e-commerce actually did have quite a dirty name back in the day. People
Hmm.
Mm.
put it down. People used to say, I mean, e-commerce was associated with eBay, which was looked down upon. And eBay, if you remember, started off as used. It was used products. They
Used
Yeah,
products. Yeah.
so no one wanted to be associated with the
with
word
that.
e-commerce because it sounded like eBay and it sounded like used products and everything. And so I had the same issues. Some suppliers over here was like, no, sorry, you need to have a shop. Others were like, yeah, fine, but we need you to buy products worth £25,000. I'm like, I couldn't
Oh.
£100 for a website. So you're asking me for 20.
Wow.
So that was that. And I then began to look outside of the UK, and I went into the deepest parts of Europe and just, found manufacturers and just walked my way around it, and just through conversations, and was able to get a range of furniture to sell. And so that's how the UK arm came into being. And then I then was dealing with, I came across, I'm going to make it really quick. So I came across an article in a magazine one day, and it was just called The Rockstar Story.
Hmm.
And what happened was they had someone speaking at an event. They asked her to come to the stage, and I'm just changing everyone's names here because I don't remember the original names. I don't know these people. So they got her to stay they introduced this woman who was coming to speak. The first introduction went something like this: Meet Mary. Mary graduated from one of the top universities in the country. On the day she graduated, she was snapped up by a Fortune 500 company, and she worked there for a year, and she moved very quickly to another Fortune 500 company and worked there for another year. And now she's moved across the country. She's moved to Brussels, and she is working on her first book. And the second introduction said, Meet Mary. Mary went to one of the top universities in the country, but she only managed to get a third class when she graduated. On the day she graduated, she met her father's friend who offered her a role in his firm as a cleaner, and she worked there for a while, and was made redundant, and her friend helped her get another job as a clerk. She worked there for a while, was let go as well from that role, and she had to move to Brussels to live with her aunt because she was now homeless, and she's thinking about starting her own business one day, and maybe one day writing a book. And the article ended with, which of these stories you prefer, which obviously was the first one.
The
It just
first one, definitely.
Exactly. And it is the same person, but the first story is called the Rockstar Story, and the second one's called the Sob Story. And the article
Mm.
ended with which said ended asking or telling the reader to write their own rockstar story. And
Hmm.
no reader to tell me. I grabbed my paper and I rewrote my story as a rockstar version. And when I was done and I read it, I thought, oh my goodness, this is absolutely amazing. This is not something to be ashamed of, because up until then, I would shy away from anyone who asked me how I got into business, because I was just so embarrassed at my failure. I was ashamed of the loss. I felt like I was a failure, and I never
Mm.
wanted to talk about it. I didn't put myself forward as a businesswoman. And
Hmm.
so when I rewrote the story, though, you couldn't stop me. I was just telling it everywhere. that just that made that another domino effect for me, because the press picked it up, and it's just kind of carried on from there.
It's
Yeah.
amazing, that we can rewrite our own story. We don't have to, accept what the world is throwing at us or what we're feeling. We can
Yeah,
rewrite our own story and, say what we want. And just the
exactly.
things that I loved about what you said about your passion and tenacity, I think, that's one sterling thing that if you don't have that as a business person, you can't be successful. And I see that you just even building your own website, that's passion and tenacity. I'm not saying, what, I can't even do this.
About desperation when your back is up against the wall, and you have, and I thank God really that I that was the direct, because sometimes you're at a crossroad and you've got to either go left or right, and I'm
Mm,
so thankful to God that I chose in that moment to
mm,
heal myself, because that's what it was for me. I was not about to be the woman whose life became nothing just because
mm,
she,
mm,
I and I and I have a very active imagination too. So I could actually see myself selling pepper on the streets. Or selling bread, literally, like I go all the way there with my imagination, and I was like, can't do that. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna be that. So
Well,
find whatever it is that drives you in that moment, even if it's pepper selling.
wow. But I think it's because you know your why. That's why you could stomp that, you could overcome that storm at that particular, you know, period in your life. Because if you didn't know the reason why am I here? Why am I doing this? You won't be able to move forward.
Mm. You've got very high hopes. Yes, you look really. You think a lot about me.
No, no, seriously, seriously. Because I,
I feel great.
no. I'm just saying because I cannot. I know that sometimes in my life that I've gone through some stuff and then I'm sitting down there. Sometimes I just shut people out because I don't want pity party.
Mm.
But at other times, it took a while. I think it was one time I was talking to Tolu about something, and she goes, "You know what? If you start writing down everything you've done, you have your praise journal, you have things you've accomplished, no matter how little they are,
Mm.
and you refer back to those, it gives you a kind of like hump, and you'll feel like, you know what? I can't stay here. I need to move on to get to the next thing. So based on what you said, is because you know the reason. You can actually give up and say, you know what? I don't have £1,000 to build the website. Let's just leave it like that. Let's call it a day. Let me go back into my normal 9 to 5 job. But no, because you know the why, you know how you arrive at that point in time to say, you know what, this is my niche market, kind of.
What reel
This
that
is what I
back
want to
in
do.
from the pepper seller mom.
So even when you were thinking, oh, I'm going to be a pepper seller, you thinking, hello, magic. Sorry for non-Yoruba speaking. It means God forbid, but you know what I mean. Like, I know this can't be me. I know why I'm here, kind of.
It's even worse in my case, where my response to being a pepper seller is worse than God forbid, because what my response would be was, if that's what it comes to, then poor me, this is my life. I literally begin to accept it, and I had to make sure
Mm,
that I can get into that space of acceptance, and it's a
mm,
work in progress, because thinking about my why, I think my why has changed frequently over the years, and that's just due to me, growing and maturing as a person, and just life experiences teach you as well. And my why currently is, which I hope is the final one, I hope that Jiggy, is the fact that God has a very detailed picture of all of us
Mm,
individually on the palms of his hand. The Bible says we are
amen.
engraved on the palms of his
mm,
hand. And when I think of that, I don't just think of, I know some versions say your name, which is all right too, but I think of a complete picture of us, not the
mm,
me that I am now, not the broken, failed Toks, not the one who isn't sure what she's doing, but the one who has become beyond her wildest imagination, not the pepper selling imagination, the other. And I is a complete picture of me, and my why is becoming that picture in the physical realm, so that's what
oh,
my why is now. Like, what, not only does God have a plan for me that's very, very detailed, very clear, very specific, and the sky literally is my limit. Not only does he have that as a plan, but he's also even given me everything I need. And sometimes I go through seasons where I have to meditate on a sentence for a while, and it could be a scripture, it could just be a realization about life or about myself. For example, I have everything I need is one of my most recited sentences, because
mm,
every time I want to look around me to say, "Oh my goodness," I mean, I my shop's on the King's Road, and I remember when I first arrived here, I would walk down the road, and I'm looking at everyone thinking, "Lucky you, lucky you! You don't even know how good you have it. You're not struggling like I am."
mm,
And I'm drawing all these conclusions, believing that they had more than I did.
I do.
I had to learn that actually everything that I need is already inside me.
Hmm.
Even if it's if I'm lacking in knowledge, I have the ability to learn. If I'm lacking in
Mm,
funds, I have the ability to raise funds. If I'm lacking in confidence, I have the ability to gain confidence either through friends and family or people or inspirational material or what have you. But it's in me. And so now my why is I don't want to come to the end of my life and have those things still in me untouched, and I don't become
mm,
what I could have become. I think that would really break me. Of course, I'll be dead,
yeah.
so I wouldn't cry, but you know.
Hmm.
Wow. Wow. So based on what you said, and one of the things I'm going to point out is our why can actually change as we mature, as we grow as well. So people don't have to think of, the why they had 10 years ago as that's where they still need to be, even though where they are now and that why 10 years ago doesn't fit into where they are or where they need to be. So I think people need to like have that conscious thing in it because the change is a constant thing as
Yeah,
well. So we need to have that at back of our mind. So based on all, because I can see you said, your why now and where you want to be and stuff like that. So what motivated you to start a podcast? Was it based on the things you said you draw strength from people around you, from family, friends, um, materials and stuff like that. So was that one of the reasons you started a podcast? What was the motivation behind the podcast?
the motivation was really because I'm a bit of a talker, and I, share I started off before Instagram and all of that. I would send emails out to my friends list. Maybe I might wake up one morning feeling extremely inspired, or I just get a deep revelation on something or a deep understanding of something. And I email them and say, listen, and I write it all out. And I've been doing that for quite a few years. And then with Instagram, I sometimes wouldn't be able to, get my laptop out, start typing. And I just like, I'm just going to do a video instead. And so I record videos, but I can't go on and record a video for an hour, or 30 minutes
Mm,
standing with my phone on Instagram And so I thought I'm going to start a podcast instead, and I'm going to do it. And I also had the season last year where I began to aim for excellence in every area of my life. And I thought, if I'm going to produce or put out anything, then let me do it well, not haphazard, not a little bit here, a little bit there. And so that really was the inspiration that I want to be able to share these lessons, these life and business lessons that I'm learning. I want to share it with a wider audience, but I want to share it properly. I don't just want to give, a 5-minute burst and say, I just want to do it. And it's just sometimes you feel like there's just stuff in you that has to come out. And my
mm.
my husband says to me that he's so thankful for the podcast. It was launched in May of this year. He goes, he's so thankful because now, hopefully, my talking will reduce in the house. But they're not that happy. It's still going on.
So, I know that you've got
Sorry, go on.
your
Sorry, ladies. I just wanted everyone to know that I put a link to Talks podcast in the comment section below. So if you click on that, bookmark it, and keep listening to those wonderful podcasts.
Yeah.
so I was gonna say now you got your store in Chelsea. Can you see the smile on my face?
And that's why I'm laughing. Like, why is she smiling?
No, uh, I'm just thinking. You're mom of 4 boys. You've got a podcast. You've got this business, and the business is just not just anywhere. Chelsea is like, for example, if we live in Nigeria, like Lekki, if I may say so. So Chelsea is like I've been to Chelsea a few times. I've passed around that place, and I'm thinking, what will it be to have a house there? Kind of stuff like that. So how do you juggle all of this? Does that put a lot of pressure on you, or you find a way around to keep everything balanced? Home life balance, work life balance, podcast balance. How do you juggle all this?
I wish. This is juggling. I'm at the shop right now. I'm not at home. So that's my juggling. It's like I don't know what's going on in that house and I really don't care. So long as when I get in the life, that's my version of juggling, juggling stuff. I have a lot of support for sure from my husband. My kids are not babies, even though, yesterday, yesterday I can't remember what we had for dinner. I said I can't remember, 2 nights ago, and I said ask the boys if they were happy with A or B, whatever the options were. Maybe it was Eba and spaghetti or something. And one of them said to me, whichever is easier for you, mom. And a light bulb went up in my head. I said, actually, no, you're making. I'm not even cooking for you. Like, and the shock and you know, but I had to learn to compartmentalize my life. Had, and this only is only in recent times when I remember just really feeling like I was behind everything. I felt like the business was suffering, my family was suffering, the house itself was suffering, even I was suffering as well. And I just felt like everything in my life was being neglected, including my friends. And I was just on a spinning wheel where the business was concerned. It was getting all my attention, but it wasn't getting the right type of attention. So
Mm.
I wrote down, and this was just, I felt inspired to do this by the Holy Spirit. And I got a piece of paper and I drew 5 columns. And in the columns, the first one I had was my family. Second one was the house itself. The third one was the business. The fourth one was called inspiration, which is podcasting, writing, speaking, all of the stuff that comes under that. And the fifth one for the first time was myself, because everyone says put yourself at the top of the list, but if you're not even on the list, then you're not going anywhere. And I wasn't on any list. So I created these areas and I wrote down the absolute minimum that should happen in these areas for me to know that I'm not neglecting those areas. And I also wrote down ways in which I could bless these areas. So I had like my little list of, for example, for the house, every single time I do a load of laundry, if I wipe the kitchen table, if I tidy up anything I do that has to do with the house, that's me blessing the house. No matter how
Mm.
small it is, even if it's just picking up a piece of tissue from the ground and putting it in the bin, that's me blessing the house.
Mm.
When it comes to my family, every single time I cook for them, I'm blessing them. I'm loving them.
Mm.
Every single time a child comes back from school and starts telling me about their day, and I put my phone down and I'm looking them in the eye, which I always do, I'm blessing my child. I'm looking after my family. Every time I give them a hug, or I even walk past them and rub their heads, that's me blessing them. And so, well, that's what I did was in all of these areas. And for me, it's the simplest things. Quiet cup of tea by myself, journaling. I'm a huge journaler. Like I journal almost every day. Going out for a walk, going on solo breaks by myself, all of that stuff. I made sure that every day something is done. And I realized that it wasn't that I wasn't looking after these areas of my life. It's just that I wasn't recognizing that I was looking after them. And because I wasn't recognizing it, I felt stressed and I felt I'm falling behind and I'm neglecting my duties and I'm neglecting my role as a mom and a wife.
Mm.
It was just so the list building thing or the column making thing is more for you to recognize just how much you're actually doing and give
Mm.
yourself a break and stop saying I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do that. So that has really helped me. And then my husband's really supportive and I've got really close supportive friends. If I go on a business trip, for example, my friend Susie is sure to show up at my house with rice and chicken and everything for all of them, literally every day that I'm away. So
Thank
I,
you, Susie, if you're listening.
she really is. She is. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. That's kind of how, and it's just like one day after the other, and I'm learning not to be too hard on myself because we can be,
Mm.
and in particular, we have these unrealistic expectations of what we
That's
should, and it's just not. Yeah. So
And
that's
that's a big takeaway that you've given me right there. Like what you've done was literally change your mindset about the situation. And once you switched in your mind that you're blessing your home, it changed the way you felt about what you were doing and took away the pain of doing it, isn't it? And that in itself, it's amazing if you can switch in your mind and get your mind in the right place. You can start being more productive and just, get rid of the baggage.
That's it. You
Thank
put
you
it
for
so.
that.
You just literally just described it perfectly. I don't think I even had it worked out that well in my
But to be honest, I think you writing it down as well, because you will feel guilty as if you've not done anything, whereas you're actually doing a lot. So writing it down, like you said, gave you that you could see it, physically see it, and you can be rest assured that actually I'm actually doing more than I thought I was doing, and and you're not stressing over the fact that you think, oh my God, I've neglected the boys, I've neglected the house, the business and stuff. No, but you writing it down, you can actually see that actually I'm doing a lot, and you can always be on top of things by having that going. So I think I'm going to be writing stuff down.
Yeah.
That's true. I think I'm going to be writing stuff down, because I feel like month end especially, I feel like I ignore my family a lot. So I'm taking this on board as well, and I'm going to go and write it down and make sure
I
that
love the
actually let
way
me see
she
what I'm
wrote
doing.
it as well when she said, I'm blessing my home. I've never
Mm,
heard that before. And that's
mm,
just amazing. Just forces your mind to see things in a different way from how you've been
mm,
seeing it.
Mhm.
mm,
Mm.
It really does. It makes all the difference in the world. And the thing about it is a scripture comes to mind that says, moving from glory to glory.
Amen.
mm,
Done that, I found that I then became, and it was something Tolu said as well, that I became free to do even more. And when I say more, I don't mean physically fill my time with more stuff, but choose higher quality activities that would be
mm,
more of a blessing for all of us as a,
mm,
because I don't know if this happens to you, where you feel like you're falling behind and therefore your response to that is to get busy. But
Mm.
there's a difference between being busy and being productive.
productive. Mm,
Like, start cleaning my house, but what's the point in keeping my house clean if my kids feel neglected? You know,
Mm.
so you
mm,
feel like you're more in control. Like, it literally felt like, prior to me creating that list, it felt like my whole life was on a table and spilling down the edges, like literally overflowing with stuff. But the minute I was able to, once I did the list, it felt like my whole life had fit into the palms of my hands, and I
Mm.
mm,
all of it. And that's the feeling of control, was just, then gave me the power and the confidence to do even more.
Even more.
Like,
Even more.
yeah.
I'm gonna, I got two rabbits. We have two rabbits, Hera and Hazel.
Aw.
They wanted pets for a while, and I was like, no, 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 you can't do it, because I just thought, we're too busy. I'm too busy. I'm not going to look after them. But when you were able to filter out, you find that there is so much that you do that's unnecessary. And once you're able
mm,
to do all of that and focus on only the things that matter, then you have room for higher quality things.
Hmm.
yeah,
For
that's
me, one
true.
thing as well is sometimes when I have this baggage in my mind that something is not working, it stops me from being productive. I don't have the energy to do any other stuff. I just focus on that thing that, oh, it's not working, it's not working. And it's not helping me. I'm not doing anything, that all that's not doing anything. Amazing.
So,
Yeah.
do you still feel that there's more ground for Toks to cover? I actually feel like talking to you. I actually feel like we're gonna hear something down the line before the end of this year saying Toks has launched this. So, do you feel like that as well? And
I,
and
for sure, there is so much more to do. Business wise, I'm literally at the starting point. There's so much I should be doing. I think I should be doing that I'm not. Um, there is a big step in my business that I want to take. And when you say that when you said that you feel like before the end of the year you'd hear something, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I was just journaling about that just this morning.
Oh, amazing.
oh,
What my journaling is filtering my fears, or dealing with my fears. I do that. So I'm writing all the reasons I'm afraid to take this big step. And I'm writing all the reasons why I have to take the big step. And then, and it is quite time sensitive as well. So there is a lot to be done. I'm not, I really truly believe that the episode 28, which is the episode that came out this morning. I share about Tyler Perry's life, and he talks about. I talk about how he went from being getting his motivation from the unforgiveness for his father, and he had to start getting his motivation from knowing that not only was he created for more, but getting his motivation from helping people, you know. And this is an interesting conversation I've been having with my friend over the last week, which is, why do you do what you do? And
Mm.
understandable that we run businesses because we want to make money,
Hmm.
but that's the only reason you're running the business. That's all you're going to get out of it, and that's if you're lucky. And so he had been really struggling and hustling and putting out these plays, and nothing was coming out of it. You know, no one was watching them. He would borrow money. He would pour
Hmm.
all of his money into a stage play. No one will show up.
Yeah, shop. Mm.
Then he started to hear then maybe a trickle, a handful of people will show up. And because he grew up in poverty and he was also abused as a child,
Hmm.
his goal, his why from when he left home was, I want to live a life that's not poor. I just want to run away from poverty
Mm.
and abuse. I don't even think he was looking to be wealthy. He just wanted to leave his past behind. So everything
Mm.
he did, all of his plays and all of that stuff, the motivation and the why was, I'm leaving poverty behind. That is until people began to come to him to say, the play you did changed my life, because his plays
Mm.
are about adult survivors of child abuse. So people would come,
Mm.
it changed my life. And the reason it was changing their lives is because nobody was doing stuff like that. No one was
Yeah.
stories of these people who had been through trauma and suffering. No one was telling their stories in a way that wasn't making them seem like outliers, you know? No
Mm.
one was trying to help them either. The stories are used to um, fill in Hollywood stories, you know, like, oh, this story, and by the way, that girl there was abused, but the main star there, you know, he wins in the end. Well, that's not
Mm.
life. People don't always win in the end. So when
Yeah.
people began to tell him it was changing their lives, he then changed his reason and said, you know what, I may not make money, because it found it more fulfilling for people to come and tell him that than for him to make the money. And he changed his reason and said, going forward, I'm only doing this place because it's changing the lives of people. So I
Mm.
know for a fact that your purpose has got to tick two boxes. One, it has to glorify God, and two, it's got to help people. And I am so far away from that, it's unbelievable. And so there is just so much um, ahead for me to do.
Yeah. Well. Wow. It's been an interesting time with you. And I've got one last question.
Uh,
So, what message would you have for someone out there who will see this or is always seeing your, you in newspapers, who's been following your podcast and stuff like that, and is thinking, you know, how can I ever achieve this level of success? I know we've talked about the success part of it, that how do we measure success and stuff like that. But what would you say to someone that's thinking, how can I even achieve anything in my life? Like, I want to start something, but how do I even get it started? How do I even get to where I think I want to be? Or, what would your advice to such people be?
I would say start with being introspective. You know, you need to get to know who you are as a person and discover the gifts that are inside of you. A lot of times we don't start things because we think we don't have the resources for it. And I mentioned about how we are so focused on the physical that we only measure success based on things like finances and material things. And if that's what your measure of success is, then you're going to think that that's what you need to get started. Whereas
Mm.
all you need is the idea, which is already there. What the reason I started the Living Inside Out podcast and why it's called Living from the Inside Out is because I believe that we all carry a seed inside of us, and in that seed is our greatness. It contains our gifts, it contains our purpose, it contains the desire to express it, it contains everything that we need. The problem is that that seed is layered with stuff.
Mm.
life experiences, childhood trauma, betrayals through life, fears and worries, the opinions of man. That's a huge one. How I appear
Mm.
to others. And those are, imagine that it's like soil that's covering that seed. And then all of your decision making, all of your conclusion drawing is going to come from that soil instead of coming from the seed itself. So the practice of introspection is really digging deep to beyond the levels and just getting into who you are at the core and what you have at the core so that you can become the person that you want to, you can start the business, you can do everything that you need. I think that everything begins with mindset. I can say practical things like go to the British Library, which I always tell people when people come to me with business ideas. Go to the British Library. So there is the practical aspect. I'll share maybe two or three of those, but everything that all of our activities, all of our action starts off with a thought. So if you don't work
Mm.
on your mind, you can get as busy as you want to going to the library and researching and doing this, that, and the other. But if your mindset is not right, it's not going to take you very far. So the practice of working on your mind cannot be overestimated.
Right.
And on a practical note, so one of the methods I have used personally is using a mentor. I really believe in business mentors. Find somebody who is in the same field as you're going into. Most people in business are very happy to share. Most people in business also don't have the time to share. So do as much research as you can and find a mentor so that you're only asking questions that you don't have, you are not able to find the answer to on Google, or what have you. Even go to businesses that are in existence and go speak to them and say, you know what, when I was opening the shop here, I spoke to the businesses around because I just wanted to find out more about the area. And so that's one thing you can do. Find a mentor. The British Library is a treasure trove of business information, idea, research. There is literally, and it's not the main library, it's the Business and IP Center. You need to register to go there and to use their facilities, but it is absolutely brilliant. They also have, I mean, obviously, this is now post COVID, they have events that they hold, entrepreneurs evenings or something. I can't remember what they're called, but they have these events they have, and they bring in experts in different fields. So just jump onto their newsletter and keep abreast of what's going on there. Something else as well is making sure that you have a good why for why you're going into the business. Because if you've got a good reason and you've got something that's driving you, then you can start. Because trust me, not very long down the line, you're going to find a reason to quit if you don't have a strong enough reason to have started in the first place.
Mm.
Mm,
Mm.
awesome. You know what? There's something that you said. I was listening to Oprah the other day. She brought this guy on. There's this soul I can't remember the name now that she does on Sunday, soul something show anyway. So this guy was a murderer and he was in jail for how many years? For lots of years anyway. He's now a best-selling author. He's now a coach, a mentor. He now does awesome things, and it's amazing to think of someone that was that far gone, to be so successful. And just like he said, what he said was that he found out that his inner child was in there wanting to come out. And there's so many layers, to his life. When he was in prison, he was the boss guy in prison, always, the head, of the prison guys and the tough guy. And he said that a lot of those faces they put on was affecting how he was responding to situations. And he
Mm.
said that he had to, like you said, get all those layers, all those faces, and find out and be vulnerable with himself. His true self inside of him. Why am I responding this way? Why am I doing all these things? And until I was able to answer all those questions, was able to find the gift, and then he started doing these amazing things. It was like many people will say, "You've gone to jail for murder, forget it, that's it."
Over.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
and that just proves that we really do. We're all gifted, and
Mm.
we all have it inside of us. It doesn't make it easy, and it doesn't necessarily make it pleasant, but it's there. That's such an incredible story to go from being in prison to
Absolutely, absolutely. Did you
It
say I
changes
saw
us.
on your page? Do you work with intercity kids?
I do, yes, yes. I work with a charity called Urban Synergy. I mentor with them, and we go to schools in mostly the Lewisham Borough, some of the boroughs in Southeast London, and we just go to speak to the kids because a lot of those children don't have access to women and men of color who are successful or are in different fields. And so the Urban Synergy brings people from different walks of life, from lawyers and pilots and, footballers, everyone, to these schools, and we speak to the kids and we mentor them.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Success is just not this. Success can be different shapes and colors and sizes.
Exactly. Because sometimes when I speak to the kids and I ask them, all the boys want to be footballers, all the girls want to be
Supermodel.
that's that they see. They don't really get to see a whole lot more. And especially for black
Mm.
children, there aren't many black people on television that are thriving because the media is not showing them. So if we're not going to rely on you to see people who look like you on television, we're going to bring them to you. So
Yes,
it's really good
imagine that.
that I feel very privileged to work with them.
That's an amazing. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well done.
Mm.
Yeah. It's been such an amazing time having a chat with you. I won't call it an interview. This is actually a chat. It's so the, seriously, it feels like we want to continue, but I'm conscious of the time as well. Tolu, do we have anyone asking any questions on Facebook?
Good question. Let me quickly.
We always forget about that.
Yes, yes. And if anyone has any quick question, you can put it on here. Tinola says, I'm inspired by your focus and resilience talks. Aisha is on there. Hi, Aisha. Good to see you today. Acceptance is key. Lucy said, got me speaking in tongues. Yeah, no questions, but amazing comments. Thanks, guys, for listening and watching, and thanks for commenting.
Yeah.
So, Tolu, as our usual practice, thank you so much, Toks, for coming on. And I'm so looking forward to what you've got in stock. Trust me, I'll be following your podcast. Once I finish on this, I'm going to go and search for your podcast and I'm going to listen to it. Thank you so much for coming on. And as our usual tradition, Tolu, can you say thank you to our guest?
Oh, yes. Thank you, everyone, for coming. A big God bless you. Thank you, Toks. We are so honored to have you on here today. Thanks for honoring us with your presence. It's been another amazing episode of Inspirational Moments with Diamonds and Pearls. And, we aim to bring diamonds and pearls on here to just share the story. That's what we're all about. This has been run by Precious Pearl Charity, a registered charity in the UK. And we're all about empowering our world one person at a time. We're doing it because we're children of God, because we're Christians, and we believe that we should shine our light out there in the world. So that's who we are. Follow us at Precious Pearl Charity on Facebook and Instagram, and at Inspirational Moments with Diamonds and Pearls on Facebook. And also we have our Hope Project 2020 coming on up in December. This is when we partner with charities, and we just do the little that we can to bless the world out there. So thanks to everyone that's contributed, that's supporting us. A big God bless you. Thanks for joining today. Thanks, Toks. Thanks, Liz. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of the weekend and fantastic week ahead. And don't buy too much stuff on Cyber Monday, but yeah, Cyber Monday.
Bye, ladies.
Bye, everyone. God bless you. Thanks, Toks.
Bye. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Toks. Bye.
Bye.